Welcome, everybody. Welcome to our end of the month prophecy update. And food is more than welcome inside the sanctuary. Coffee's more than welcome. Just make yourself at home, streaming out there in the coffee house if you want to sit out there or anywhere. And I was sitting out there chatting and eating, and I go, oh, wait, we do a prophecy update. What in the world is going on? Welcome to our prophecy update. We do it once a month. We used to do this once a year. And we literally, the way the world is moving, we could do this once a week. And we won't. Maybe, I don't know. But why do we do it? That's always important. Why do we do what we do? I think there's a question that I ask, in anything and everything that I do. Well, why do I study the Word? Why do we serve? Why do we, in the workplace, whatever we do, it's a good place to go, well, why do I do what I do? And this is a great place for us of, why do we study prophecy? Well, because God gives us three things that he says, don't be unaware of. And the word in some translations says ignorant. It just means don't be unaware of these things. His working with the nation of Israel. People think God's done with Israel. They put the church is Israel in the book of Revelation. We start the book of Revelation in like a month. So the next time we do a prophecy update, it will be the Sunday before we start the book of Revelation, which will be interesting about that. God's far from done with the nation of Israel. And that's why we study it, because our first point that we're going to make is, if you don't want to know what time it is in God's prophetic timepiece, look at Israel. He says, don't be unaware of spiritual gifts, as he speaks about that in 1 Corinthians 13. And as I say, I need more Holy Spirit. I need more of the gifts of the Holy Spirit, to love my wife, to be a man of God in the workplace, in the community, and these type of things. We need these spiritual gifts to do, because what we're in is a spiritual realm. And then thirdly, 1 Thessalonians 4, don't be unaware of his second coming. Jesus Christ is coming back. I'm excited to say that. I can say that conclusively. So why do we study that prophecy? Because we're told by God not to be unaware. And then there's 5 things that prophecy does for us. You can see my slides. All these notes will be attached to this video and audio after we post this here in an hour or so. Peace, priority, purity, proof, and preach. Peace, that we can comfort one another, as the scriptures tell us. If things aren't falling out of place, they're coming right in line of what God's called and his scriptures declare. And it's a priority. What's really important? Why do I do what I do? And this will set the priority in my life. Seek first the kingdom of God and his righteousness. And all these things will be added unto you. As we just finished studying the book of John, verse 3, purity. Those who believe that we could see Jesus at any time will make themselves pure. And then fourth, it's proof. There's no way that you can see these newspaper articles, look at the scriptures, and then say that the Bible was happen chance. It proves that this Bible was written outside of our time domain. And then lastly, it's so that we might preach. It stirs us as part of the priority. There's a lost and dying world who thinks the great lie of Satan, one of his greatest lies, I say it all the time, and you know what it is? You got time. And that's one of the greatest lies, that we think, that a man can think they have more time. Whereas God would say, you don't know that tomorrow your soul could be required of you. So the first point that we look at is the nation of Israel. And so, Father, I ask, make this word come alive. Put me away. Lord, only what's of you. Only what is inspired of you. Let us see you. Let us see what's going on around us. What in the world's going on? So that it might stir us. It might move us. And we'll respond however appropriate that you'll speak to us. So have a time. I pray in your name. Amen. Israel. Well, before Israel becomes the center of attention, as I say, the prophetic timepiece, and it speaks of Israel. Right now it's known as the time of the Gentiles, dispensation of grace. God's riches at Christ's expense, we can come and receive salvation simply through the finished work of Jesus Christ, our message this morning. Well, before Israel then becomes God's focus, if you would, not, we see that they are now, but right now it's the church, it's the dispensation of grace, it's called the church age. Well, before that happens, we got to go. And so next up on the prophetic clock, I believe, is the rapture. He's going to take us home, and we're going to see him face to face. Then the prophetic clock really starts going into fast motion. I think it becomes the second hand, honestly. And so we see three things with the nation of Israel. Shall a nation be born in a day? That is a prophetic prophecy, Isaiah 66, verse 8. And we did, May 14th, 1948. Check, done. Prophecy update could just be finished right there. We've watched the impossible, that a nation could be raised out of the ashes. No nation has ever survived longer than 200 years without a homeland. Here, the nation of Israel, almost 2,000 after Titus rolled over and utterly destroyed Jerusalem, the temple, and all these in 70 A.D. And here comes a nation and a people that kept their identity and still survived. And here they were regathered May 14th, 1948. Amazing. Amazing. That in itself is enough. Well, he says in Ezekiel 36 that then he'll be gathering Jewish people from the four corners of the earth to repopulate and restore and establish Israel. Israel now is looking at a population around 8 million people. That's about what it was before the destruction. We see them coming back into their zenith of a nation and who they are. And you can see one of the things, I think Satan always thinks war works for him. In many ways that it does, but war has continually, COVID, he thought it was one of his masterful pieces of work. More Jewish people returned to Jerusalem, Israel, because of COVID, because they said, man, this world's getting out of control. I need to head back home. So all this regathering was happening during COVID. Then the war, Russia, Ukraine, one of the largest group gatherings of Jewish people, Ukrainian and Russian, coming back and coming back to Jerusalem for this rebirth. Well, now here it is, Ethiopia, the continual depravity and destruction that happens. Ethiopian Israelis rally in Jerusalem seeking increased immigration. There's all these Ethiopians with a Jewish descent who want to come, and so they're rallying to say, open the floodgates, let them all come back. We just continually see, and I say this all the time. I spend a lot of time on this first point because all the other points are just interesting to me. This is the point, Israel. If Baltimore City was under, or let's just say, take the state of Maryland, and instead of our neighbors being Pennsylvania, Delaware, Virginia, West Virginia, and just surround us with people who hated us, would we want to live in Maryland? We'd be like, all these people surround us. They want to kill us. They want to bomb us. And here Israel is. It's in this little nestle with all these Arab states, Palestinian states who hate them and will see it bent on their destruction. And yet people keep returning. People are leaving New York, the wealth of America, leaving Miami, the wealth of America, and they're immigrating back to Israel. It can only be supernatural. It can only be the fulfillment. Well, you can see my slide here. Why did I put a slide up that speaks of Netanyahu announces $27 billion railway plan that will link Israel to Saudi Arabia. We'll talk about Saudi Arabia here in a second, but with population growth comes economic growth. And as you watch the economic growth of Israel, it speaks of a nation that's coming alive. We see a nation that's being their own nation, and the linking of this rail system, it just speaks. The population of Israel is growing. They need to move. And the population of Israel growing. The economy is moving. And all of it speaks and just confirms God is regathering, not just rebirthing, he's regathering and he's restoring. He's making Israel so strong, our 8th point, the Magog invasion, that there would be a reason that some nations, Iran, Russia, Turkey predominantly, will want to come down and destroy them. They'll either want to destroy them for prosperity reasons of wealth, or they're going to want to come down and destroy them because of who they represent, Jehovah God. So the third point that we look at here in Israel, it says Israel will be a stumbling block and a cup of trembling in the last days. You know, so true. Every presidential candidate, every politician, you know, how do we solve this issue with Israel? How do we solve the instability of the Middle East? You take Israel out of the Middle East, and guess what? You no longer have instability. Israel, their existence is what causes all the instability. And they're trying to figure out, how do I destroy Israel, Iran, Iraq, and these type? Well, interesting as we look at these things, but one of the big things that's going on right now, it's called normalization. President Biden is trying to broker a peace deal between the Saudi Arabia and Israel. And normalization means that I respect you, I don't want to kill you, I don't want to destroy you. And the other thing is we will have commerce together. You can fly into my country, I can fly into your country. We'll have this trade together. And look at Benjamin. He's going to spend $27 billion to build a railway that will connect all the way to Saudi Arabia. Pretty fascinating for these type of things. Here's the problem that's going on here. Almost every one of my slides does not speak well and bode well for the United States of America. And I just have to speak that honestly. And part of the reasons we do prophecy is that we can awake and see where America's going, awake and see where America shouldn't be going. And one of the things America should not be doing is intervening in this. Let Israel take care of Israel. I mean, we can protect them militarily, supply, but what I'm saying is this president wants to try to broker this deal. The amazing thing is Israel's not part of the deal. Israel's not getting the say in this normalization. It's the president of the United States and the Saudi prince who are brokering the negotiation. And Israel doesn't get to be part of it. I'd be furious. I'd be livid if you tried to broker some type of deal for the United States of America. I'd be like, no, I'm the United States of America. I'll decide. But here, America is trying to force a hand upon Israel. And you can see Netanyahu warns grave dangers for doing that. But the Saudis are saying, we will broker a normalization with Israel if America, you help us with our nuclear ambitions. And Benjamin Netanyahu says that ain't going to be worth it. That's extremely dangerous that you would let the Saudis have nukes, because the Israelis know, even with normalization, the risks that come. America, Christian, if we don't pray for America, who else will? Really. As we studied this morning, the whole world's under the sway of the wicked one. As we studied this morning, you believe the testimony of man. How much more should you believe the testimony of God? President Biden is giving Iran, who says their whole purpose of existence is to destroy the existence of Israel. President Biden has given Iran $6 billion for 5 hostages. You only will promote more kidnapping and hostage taking by paying a ransom and negotiating with terrorism. Until Joe Biden's predecessor, Barack Obama, the United States never would negotiate with terrorists. We said the only negotiations we do with terrorists is through the end of the spear. But Barack Obama gave them hundreds of millions of dollars. Joe Biden has trumped that 50-fold. He's going to give them $6 billion. But he says, but you can't use it on your nuclear program. I'm sure you can trust Iran. You know, I'm just telling you what the Quran says. The Quran, the religious book for Islam says that you can lie, based on, I'll put paraphrase, you can lie, cheat, and steal if it serves your purpose to destroy your enemy. And so they'll gladly say, absolutely, send it our way. So we see the cup of trembling. We see how this sets up that it causes instability more than stability. And it's a repercussion on America, but it's going to be a repercussion on the Middle East. And we'll see that when we talk about the Magog invasion. So my second point, and this is where I start picking it up, and we don't already talk 100 miles an hour, we'll be boosting it to about 120. The second point, we'll look at the European superstate, the Antichrist, a 7-year peace pact. While we do our prophecy update, my hope along the way, as we look at these scriptures, is to do eschatology, the things of the last days, doctrines of the last days. And so I like to not just say these are interesting things, but also prepare us of, well, this is how the thread kind of weaves itself out. And there's going to arise the European superstate. What that means, as Revelation 13, Daniel 7, Daniel chapter 9, it's literally the revived of the Roman Empire. You can see my screen here. The European Union has been revived. They are making their own negotiations. They're becoming like the United States of America. They very much are taking the land that's very much resemblance of the Roman Empire as we see them being revived. Out of it will come, and we just finished studying the book of 1 John, the capital A Antichrist. Right now, all the little Antichrists are coming, and the sway of the wicked one, and feeding all these things that the world believes and starts to follow. Well, a man will come out of the European Union, and he will look like the Savior. He's going to broker a peace deal for Israel, to what we talked about this morning, and point 9 that we'll see again here today is the rebuilding of the temple, most likely. And he's going to broker this peace with Israel and all of its enemy. And then halfway through the 7-year peace deal, he's going to step in and go, hey, by the way, I'm actually God. Worship me. And then we're going to see Mark of the Beast as we do our study through eschatology. If you don't, you won't eat. In fact, if you don't take the mark, you'll be killed and beheaded. This is the world that we're trying to rescue people from. This is the world that we're saying, this is what the Bible says. And people can say, that's crazy talk. Well, Israel being reborn would be considered crazy talk 100 years ago. The Roman Empire being revived would be impossible. And here it is before our eyes. And it's taking on a shape that is mind-blowing to us, because what you see here now, more so than ever, the revived Roman Empire is joining itself and uniting, because there's an enemy it must unite against. And it is called Russia, who's pushing towards them with taking of the Ukraine, and we'll talk about that in a second. And under the NATO agreement is, if you attack one NATO nation, you attack us all. And there's a ramification for America, and I'll get to, we're part of NATO. But we're seeing, do you see that? Notice how much land that NATO represents the revived Roman Empire that represents the European Union. It's just right before our very eyes, which is amazing. Now, I'm not calling Zelensky, President Zelensky of Ukraine, the Antichrist. But I do find this very interesting. In Daniel chapter 7, he shall speak pompous words against the Most High, shall persecute the saints of the Most High, and, notice my highlight, and shall intend to change times and laws. Then the saints shall be given into his hand for a time and a half. It speaks of that mid-year, the 3.5-year period of this, that it gets broken. President Zelensky this week said Ukraine moves official Christmas Day holiday to December 25th, denouncing Russian-imposed tradition, which is January 6th. So Russia celebrates Christmas January 6th. Zelensky's changing the holiday calendar because he wants to separate from the reflection of being a Russian nation. You can see how he's trying to make his own identity, but I just find it interesting. He's trying to change the holiday, and that's what the Antichrist is going to do. He's going to change Easter. He's going to wipe it away. He's going to change all these things that will resemble Christ at some point. And I'm not calling Zelensky the Antichrist, but it is so amazing. He's going to take a whole nation and change their Christmas. That's fascinating to me. Well, we're pretty close. It could move quicker than any of us realize, but no one talks about Belarus having nukes. Well, they got nukes because Russia gives them their nukes, and Belarus is, you can see that on the Belarus, if you can see them up here, they're right against Poland, and you can see they're getting fed from Russia, and of course they're north of the Ukraine, but they have the nukes. And they're pressing against Poland. So Poland now is deploying 10,000 soldiers to the border because of Belarus and their aggression and the fact that they have nukes. And you can see Belarus would use nuclear weapons if the event of aggression, their president says. Man, we can see all this instability, and I'm going to talk more about that in a second here, but the revived Roman Empire, we see it before our very eyes. It's the European Union now, very much a resemblance of NATO. Well, the third point that's going to be happening, the world's going to be in upheaval. Earthquakes, famine, pestilence, wars, just like Jesus said in Matthew 24. Notes available there online as you read through that. And what we see here, well, hey, this week, or in the last 2 weeks, well, we saw some horrendous earth's in upheaval as we looked at our countrymen there in Maui, and it just smoked out like that. And that's almost a picture of what the tribulation period is going to be looking like. The world's just going to be on fire, but slowly, just like birth pains, slowly. Then all of a sudden these things become normal. We're like 500 days into this war, maybe 560 off the top of my head, and the war just keeps going and going and going. How much does it affect you? Do you see how normal it is to us? I'm going to tell you there's more to it. And by the way, when I'm done here at 12:30, we shut the live stream off, and then we have question and answers, and everybody can share what they think, and even conspiracy theories. We enjoy hearing them. But here we are, 500 plus days, Ukraine war casualties approaching 500,000. We got a lot more on our hands than we realize. Speaking of war, China and Russia send naval warships near Alaska, triggering forceful U.S. response. 3,000 U.S. Marines, this is all this month. All my stuff comes from the current month. 3,000 U.S. Marines sent to the Persian Gulf as a show of strength to Iran. Heartbreaking. President Biden has given $2.35 billion to the Taliban in Afghanistan. We've destabilized the Middle East. There was 2 years, no American casualties. That place, because of our presence, stability, terrorists had no place to dwell and to develop. President Biden pulled out without planning, no planning, not poor planning, no planning. We watched American soldiers get killed for the first time in 2 years. And now they have billions of US dollars coming to strengthen themselves. Terrorist cells are reemerging in Afghanistan. Do you know what rumors of war are? It's terrorism. I don't know where you are, I just know you exist. I didn't know you were coming on September 11th, 20 plus years ago. I had no idea that you were even a foe that was forced together. That's what terrorism is, and here's where America, again. But one of the consequences is who we're helping fund, because the Taliban hate Israel. So one more, we give money to Iran, we give money to the Taliban. Well, here's where I start seeing, I've been saying this, I'm not going conspiracy theory, I've been saying this for about a year now. There's something about President Zelensky that just seems off. It just seems off to me. He's being made up as a hero, but something just seems to be off. And I think Putin is playing a masterful chess game that he's defeating everybody in the world, and Zelensky plays into it well. Well, let me get on to my point is he can connect with all these world leaders, especially the European Union. He connects with these world leaders of the United States of America. This is a whole new elevation. The United States of America, we make the F-16. Netherlands and Denmark is going to train and deliver F-16s to the Ukrainians to defend themselves. We've always been in the position in this war that we would never help promote aggression. It was only defense of the land. Well, F-16s have more than the capability to penetrate Moscow. And if you're President Zelensky, you've now been given the power to turn the world into a world war. Russia clearly says, you penetrate Moscow territory. It's an act against Russia, all of you. And Russia is clearly saying, we will use nukes if we have to. We've just given F-16s that can penetrate well into the depths of Moscow. To a man, does anyone truly know him? And yet here you see the handshake and the posing of the Netherlands and the Denmark. He's got all of these world leaders linked to him. I don't know if it's they want to be seen with him because he represents a fight and a hero, or they're all buying into it, but we're watching one of the deadliest weapons, this fighter jet, given into the hands of a man that we don't even know. And I'm kind of being funny, but I don't know how funny I'm really meaning. There's President Zelensky in Denmark, Netherlands, sitting in the F-16 as they're saying, this is coming to you. And I love my wife. I love hanging out with my wife. I do. I like going camping with her. I like going to the store with her. But you know what? If I was to go buy and get hold of some F-16s, I'm not taking my wife with me. Look at the posing. Zelensky's in an F-16 with his wife. I'd be taking my military pilot. I'd be taking my men of war with me, and I'd be sending my signal. There's just something that seems off. And I think so much of it is everything is staged. Everything is scripted. Everything that he does. Everything that he wears. Do you notice when he wears his war, his war shirt? Do you notice when he wears his suits and these type of things? Everything is staged. And what I'm saying is, we don't even know this guy, and the whole world is flooding in. And I think one of the biggest dangers that we have here is we're fighting a proxy war, and the United States of America and the European Union is willing to use the souls of Ukrainian people. You go fight our fight because we all want to stop Russia, but you go fight the fight for us. There's just something that doesn't set well in that whole thing as we look at. I know one of the biggest things that's being said is Russia taking the Ukraine is a win for China. From the beginning, it's been a win for China because the resistance that the European Union, the NATO, America, the way they came against Ukraine, it forced China and Russia into this friendship. So now you have this great military joining forces together. Everything just keeps compounding and complicating itself. There's wars and there's rumors of war, and we have this mercenary group who their leader just got killed by Putin probably, but Zelensky could have killed him. We don't know. Wagner mercenaries in Belarus. So where the nukes are, they're mercenaries. They're an unscripted, not of a nationality. They're just a guns for hire. They're called the Wagner mercenaries, and they'll go fight wherever Putin wants them. They've been fighting in Africa. They came and they fought in the Ukraine. Well, now they're strategically placed up there in Poland, next to Poland through Belarus. So you know what? These mercenaries, they could push into Poland. Poland could respond with a nuke. And then Belarus is going to respond with a nuke. It's the insanity that I have. Zelensky says war coming to Russia after Moscow drone attacks. Here's Zelensky saying we'll go on the offensive all the way into breaking Moscow border. Here's Lindsey Graham, senator for South Carolina, says, Graham warns Russia nuclear attack on Ukraine would be an attack on NATO. Here we are. Look how close all of us are. And Ukraine attacks Black Sea Fleet. And I'll talk about that in a second. We know the mercenary leader was taken down. He tried a coup attempt against Putin. And then mysteriously a month later, here he is. He's dead. So who did it? We'll discuss that at 12:30. Conspiracy theories are abounding. But could have been Putin, you know. I'm going to show you, if you cross me, what happens. Or it could have been Zelensky, could have been CIA, who knows? But what we know is this man's dead, and the key there is you can be sure the Wagner mercenaries that are in Belarus right now will obey whatever Putin tells them to, whether to move or not move. Here's my thing. I don't think this is conspiracy, by the way. We said this a year ago, and it's been. Putin's ultimate goal was to get that red down to the Crimea, which gives him the control of the Black Sea. He's got it. Here we are 500 plus days into the war. How much do you hear about it anymore? Putin got what he wanted. He got that landmass. He can move troops down there if he wants. He controls the Black Sea. America and all the European Union, we've evacuated. We have no battleships in the Black Sea, which is a major, and I'm going to show that in a second. It's 33% of the world's commerce moves through those sea channels. Putin isn't. He's doing bombing here. He's doing some, destruction here. He is nowhere moving what we saw 500 days ago, right? But he's got the whole world sending F-16s. He's got the whole world sending hundreds of billions of dollars. He's got the whole European Union focused on this place of the Ukraine. And then all while the rest of the world around us, China, Taiwan, Middle East, and all these type of things, we don't even see it. We don't see what's happening at our own border. I think Putin has played a masterful card, and I think that the world has bought into it. And we're going to see all these sanctions, he's more economically strong than we are. Well, there's going to be earthquakes, famine, pestilence, war, strange, leprosy, outbreak, Central Florida. What is up with that? Japan is this week releasing their wastewater from their nuclear plant that melted down. They said it's okay, it's not going to damage the seafood. China has said no import of seafood from Japan. Well, guess where we get a large portion of our seafood? It's from China. Japan is going to spend $500 million in the next few months to promote a new promotion of seafood from Japan that they're catching off of this nuclear reactor waste that's being released. And it's coming where? Into the United States and Europe. What could possibly be the damage of seafood that's been in nuclear tainted waters? I don't care how much it gets diluted. A couple of us were up there a month ago. There's a new war. It's a chemical war. And it's only 2 hours north of us. And it's sweeping through the whole eastern seaboard. It's sweeping itself from left to right to right to left, because we're the right coast, they're the left coast, right? And it's called xylene. We thought fentanyl was bad. Xylene is getting laced in with the heroin that the drugs users are taking, and it turns them into zombies, literally. And we were there doing street ministry 2 weeks ago. They would give you Narcan, that, hey, if someone overdoses, blow that Narcan, and it will bring them out of their overdose. Narcan won't even touch this new drug. And that's what the point is. It's kind of what they're saying. We're into a chemical warfare. And you probably can't see it so well. I can see it from here. I think I talked to that very person and shared the gospel. The poison in the chemical must find a way out of the body, and it finds its way out through the pores, and it eats itself from the inside out to get out. And there's a chemical war that's going on. There's war that's more than bullets. There's wars of these drug wars. And look at the drug war and notice who gets the biggest blows. Europe and America. The money and the billions that it cost us with the drugs coming in to America. And we're not doing anything about it. So all this upheaval that's happening in the world, trying to get peace in the Middle East, trying to get the NATO and the wars and all the natural disasters. Well, it's going to see, we saw kind of a dry run that was happening during COVID. The whole world came together to make world rule over COVID. And here we see our fourth point, Revelation 13 and Revelation 17. A one world government's going to come out of it, and it's going to have a one world religion. The last days religion world won't be religionless. It'll just be Christless. So that's the key there. Then the false prophet's going to show up, and he's going to point people and go, the Antichrist. One day he'll arise and go, the Antichrist, that's the true God. And anti doesn't mean opposite necessarily, even though he is. It means instead of. So the Antichrist, I'm going to give you everything that Jesus won't. Well, we see a one world government, a one world religion. We see a false prophet. One of the things we've been talking about for a couple years now, we said the new religion of the world is going to be climate change. And here we see it. Senator Bernie Sanders now is asking the Department of Justice to persecute people in the fossil fuel industry for dissenting on climate change. He wants the Department of Justice to bring legal actions against anyone who doesn't agree with climate change. You talk about thought police. Here in England, man charged for silently praying near abortion clinic in England, called a thought crime. You can't preach outside, so he went and prayed, and they came and arrested him. They go, we know you're praying against abortion. Insanity. Well, I think, regardless of what you think of President Trump, and this isn't my defense for him in any means of these type of things, but judge overseeing Trump classified document case deals below to special counsel. Next one over, Hunter Biden tax charges dismissed by federal judge following plea deal breakdown. We just see misjustice. We don't see an equal application of justice. Joe Biden had classified documents on top of his Corvette in his garage in Delaware. President Trump had classified documents in his home in Mar-a-Lago. One of them is under indictment. The other is President of the United States. Hunter Biden, gun charges. Any one of you walk out of here and have a gun charge, you will not get any. In the state of Maryland, you will not get any type of grace. And the way the Second Amendment is in the attempts to be stripped away, this man's caught with gun charges, and he gets off. It's good to know who you know. I'm making the point of that the one world government is truly, we're seeing, they will determine who goes under the indictments and who gets released. And no matter how right you are, it's not going to matter. But let me speak about climate change. Global warming. Yes. Am I a climate changer guy? No. Science clearly says this. Mr. Albert Einstein said it well before me. Energy cannot be created or destroyed. It can only change from one form to another. It's called the first law of thermodynamics. It's the law of thermodynamics. Energy can't be created nor destroyed. God's sending a message. Energy, the sun, is going to heat up. The sun is the energy source. It's going to heat the earth. Now, the earth will give off some of its energy. It receives it, then it sends it off down the line, down the line. Here's my point. It's just a law of thermodynamics. Of course, after 6,000 years, the earth is going to gradually warm because the sun gives off heat. And there's a great debate scientifically if the sun is shrinking. Plenty of science articles say that it is. Plenty say, well, it's a cycle. It doesn't because it receives energy back. But I'm just saying, I think it's God's warning. And he's just confirming science. But he's saying, look, this world, earth, is not going to last forever. Try to save it, steward it. Yes, I told you that in Genesis. But try to save it? No, what you need to do is save the souls. What you need to do is save your own soul. And what you need to do is see the one who can speak earths into existence. That's the creator. But don't make a God out of climate. So I just say that because I believe in the science, and I believe, sure, not to the degree that they put it. Anybody that was at the pastor's conference with us up in Philadelphia, I actually went to Bible college with him. Pastor McClure up here. His church is the only church left that's still under fines. They say 1.2, but it's really like $3 million. They still have $3 million in fine because they defied COVID. But here's what's, they are suing the county of Santa Clara, which everybody knows what Santa Clara is. It's where the thing is. It's your phone. It's Google. It's the powerhouse of America is the ones who control the social media, Apple and Microsoft. And so they're all ESG, the environment, social, and governance. They're all into that. They want global climate change and, all these type of things. During COVID, and it's been proven, and therefore, Pastor McClure, Mike, they're trying to they're countersuing Santa Clara, geofencing. This county of Santa Clara was geofencing, and they were seeing where the greatest conglomeration gathering of people were. And they were using people's cell phone to go, look at all of them gathering in the Calvary Chapel, Santa Clara, San Jose in Santa Clara County. And they used that to make these fines. Well, the church is coming out and saying, that's illegal. That's privacy invasion. You have no right. You searched our cell phones without a search warrant. And yet here they are. It's like I said in One World Government. They get to say what they want to say. They're doing what they want to do. And no one's going to stop and stand between them because they have the power behind them. But Mike, here we are, pretty much moving on with life. That interview that I'm showing you right there, I watched it. He said, if I go to jail, I go to jail. He can actually still go to jail for COVID. And this government, Santa Clara, won't stop. I talked about Catholicism, never meant it as a poke, but the Pope, the leader of 1.2 billion Catholics, he just came out, and Pope is all in on social justice. Last week he spoke at Catholic University, and at the Catholic University, you know what he told his students who are getting ready to go out to the world? He didn't say, take the gospel to all the nations. He didn't say, tell them Jesus Christ is coming. He says, go and do good with your education. Do something about climate change. Do something about social injustice. 1.2, and he didn't tell them, take the gospel to the ends of the earth. To which I say, well, one of the problems is because they believe in purgatory, that even if you miss it on this side, you'll be okay because you can just live through purgatory and you'll be set free. Speaking of one world government and the injustice of that, every life matters. As my friend Sandy Adams says, every sheep matters. I like that. Every sheep matters. Well, D.C., Black Lives Matters 2020, right? They're painting the streets, Black Lives Matter. They're rioting. There was looting. It's the fact of the facts of everything that we saw. Well, there's a couple kids who went down with chalk, sent a letter to the mayor saying, we're going to come down and we're going to write chalk and we're going to stand outside the abortion clinic. And in chalk, we're going to write on the street, baby Black Lives Matter. Guess what happened? They went to jail. They went to jail. They just now got released from their conviction. And it took the Circuit Court of D.C. to do it. And the point that's being made, breaking windows, painting, and all these type of things, not one arrest. But someone stands up for pro-life, they get arrested. They're just kids to boot. Well, it's one world government. Hey, good news. I spoke of it this morning. I say that jokingly. They're already doing lockdowns in other places of the country. There's a college somewhere in America that just started, and the students have to do virtual classes from their dorm room because they say we want to flatten the curve. There's this new COVID variant out there, B26 or something like that. And what is disease X? United Kingdom scientists begin working on a vaccine for a new pandemic. They don't even know what the pandemic is. They're just waiting to make it up, whatever it's going to be. CDC, new COVID-19 variant may affect vaccinated or previous infected people more than earlier strains. And did I put it in here? President Biden's coming up with 40 million, and he wants everybody to get this shot. Here's a troubling one. Speaking of one world government. See, the one world government will also decide who eats, who dies, who lives. A Canadian woman was struggling with suicidal thoughts. So she went to the hospital saying, I'm not fit to be in my apartment. I'm in such turmoil right now. So she went to the hospital. There was no beds, no rooms, so they couldn't give her a bed in the room. So you know what they offered her? Assisted suicide. She goes, that's why I'm here. It's for someone to protect me from suicide. And yet the hospital offered him. What's amazing about that is right now in Canada, right upon our border, it's not too far, assisted suicide is lawful for terminal disease. Come January 1st, assisted suicide is open to anyone. All you have to say is, I have mental struggle, and they go, that qualifies you for death. So now we see a government who decides who lives, who dies, when the real, true, the one world government should be under the one who says, I died for you. I live for you, I die for you. Come unto me, all you labor heavy laden, I'll give you rest. The presidential debate this week, the Fox moderator speaks so much, and you know, the Republican Party pictures the conservative party, represents so much of the conservative values. She says it so well, and many of the Republicans claim abortion is a losing issue for the Republicans. And the abortion has moved so much. You see my slide, 42.3 million abortions in 1 year. That's what's happening in our world around us. The Democrats have settled it. We see abortion in the rampant pills mailed to you, you name it, these regardless of Roe versus Wade. But there's this Republican Party now that is in this place that goes, you know what, if we keep trying to toe this abortion line, we'll never win an election. And there's many now of these party candidates who will not stand for the abortion. What will God do for America when we just totally turn ourselves over to that? iniquity, sin will abound. So while all this is going on, the scriptures tell us, First, 2 Timothy, and that sin is going to abound. Men will be lovers of themselves, disobeying parents, homosexuality will increase, people will be without self-control and sex, people would love pleasure more than God, all these type of things. I could go on iniquity and sin abounding, but when you take Jesus out, then anything goes. USA Today suggests parents place contraceptives in teens' back-to-school supplies. What in the world's going on in the public schools? Australia, bill would allow girls under 16 to have abortions without parents' consent. This one here, U.S. suicide hits an all-time high last year. Of course it has. Man is hopeless. The world is telling them, live for pleasure, unrestrained sex, change your gender, anything and everything, and yet no one tags, well, why is suicide higher than any other time in the history of the United States of America? It's because people have no hope. But Jesus is hope, and that's where we get to be the hope. California this week, protests for protection of their children amid controversial bills. One of the most controversial bills, Bill 665, which gives children as young as 12 the power to admit themselves into residential mental health programs without parental consent. AB 957, a protested bill, related to family law, how child custody is decided. So, marriage, fighting for custody, it suggests that a parent's support and recognition of their child's gender identity or gender expression should be considered as part of what's best for the child's health, safety, and well. Basically what it's saying, any one of the parents that won't recognize the child's decision that they wants to change genders will not be the parent that gets the custody, let alone any custody. And AB 5 and AB 1076, what those two are saying without reading them word for word is it's going to force every teacher to take this inclusive training so that they can better promote LGBTQIA plus and all these type of things. We need to pray for our teachers here. We have teachers here that call Calvary Chapel home. We have people here who are in the school district, and man, this isn't far, and to be put in that place. Iniquity, sin will abound. I mean, we see this article here. Women are just quitting their sports, trained their whole life, competed their whole life, and now in 1 year, they got to compete against a man. Men are breaking all the records in women's sports. It's insane. Here's a Christian coffee shop. I think this is Seattle. Oh, no, it's Colorado. Christian coffee shop targeted by communist LGBTQ activists. They want our doors shut. And you can read on it, but they came out and they do a Bible study in their coffee house. And in the coffee, in their belief statement, they said, we believe in one man, one woman, defined by God, and that God has assigned gender at birth and these type of things. You can see the massive amount of people basically, they're going to stay and protest them until they can't do business. Because even just the common person who just wants a cup of coffee, they're going to be like, man, I don't want to go battle this. These people frighten me. And you can see some of the pictures. And you can read. Can you read that? This is what the guy's holding up. This is what a guy's holding up for the news, world media. God is a capital A or capital F A G. Man, I tell you, if you did that for anywhere else, you would be hate speech, imprisoned, and these type of things, but they can say that about our God. Hey, I'm not angry about it. My heart breaks for them. But this is what we see, and this is what we need to be praying about. But they want to hit our youth, groom them, make it acceptable. Skittles. Got to have a gay pride month, and they make a gay pride wrapper, pride. So you get your Skittles and you're a kid. You just start after year, month after month, you start thinking, you know what? My mom and dad, man, they are like over the top. with their hate speech and these type of things, because they're going to get worn down at school. They're going to get worn down at this convenience store. Everywhere they turn, it's going to be say it's acceptable. It's acceptable. Now, I know I'm on sin and iniquity, it will abound, but I'm bringing in, because I could put this, all these can always fall in the exact same place almost, but earthquakes, famine, pestilence, wars. Every month we talk about the abortion. Well, here's one of the rises in abortion. I talked about it this morning in our study. Marriage is outdated concept, young adults say in a new poll. So what that means is cohabitation. What that means is, well, I didn't want to have a kid. And so it produces the abortion, but also along the way, what it does, it dispels God's perfect, what did we study this morning? Protection and provision. Now I'm going to keep you from sexually transmitted diseases. I want to protect you from having to make this decision of a life that's going to change your life. I want to protect and I want to provide that you can just have this love together, and that you're in this together and you're not just using one another for your own selfish pleasures. So that could fall in there. I know this sounds good. It is. I give thanks for it. FBI rescued 200 sex traffickers victims in July operation. And I give thanks to the Lord for that. There's a movie out called Sound of Freedom that's about sex trafficking. It's a true life story about a man named Tim Ballard, and gave up his job and went after these sex traffickers to rescue one child. And pretty powerful. It's broken everybody's expectation in Hollywood. You know, it actually didn't get released for 5 years because nobody in Hollywood would pick it up. But then one of the outlets did. I believe it's the same outlet that's doing the what's now one of the phenomenons called The Chosen by Dallas Jenkins. What am I showing you? That's Amazon. You cannot find that movie on Amazon. There's a reason. You can't find it on Netflix. You're going to have to buy it on CD to bring it into your house. Because there's a reason that's only demonic and satanic behind it, that they don't want this movie. What the word is, 200 million children and women, especially, are caught up in this sex trafficking. You would think something of that magnitude would be available for the world to watch and get uptight about and come alongside and go, something needs to be done about this. Why wouldn't Amazon and Netflix put this out there? And that's why I go 200, that's amazing, out of 20 million. Why? What is the bureaucracy that can only get the greatest federal bureau of investigation in the whole wide world, that we can only get 200 of them? With all the technology, we should be pulling down 2,000 a day. We should be shutting them down, and they can't cross the border and all these type of things. But iniquity and sin will abound. So this is the part where I do the last 10 slides, or the last 10 points in 5 minutes. It happens every time. But it gets our point, and we see what's happening. Apostasy and the great deception is our next point. And I put these slides quick and high level. Some will depart from the faith. False teachers will arise. That's what we studied here for 3 months. People will mock the last days, second coming. It's all about the dispelling and tearing down of our faith. And the one world government won't be religionless. It'll just be Christless. But I find it interesting that one of the great technologies everybody's fear about is called AI, artificial intelligence. And our United States government general says, we don't have to worry because our artificial intelligence that's tied into our drone killers, it's going to be based on Judeo-Christian values. Isn't that amazing? That we will morally fight morally, as America does, but they use Judeo-Christian values as that's the world's values. I mean, that's the standard of values. I just find that interesting. But the great deception is just this great deception. People will depart from the faith. People will step up, false prophets, and say, no, don't listen to those churches that believe the Bible is the Word of God. If you go on iTunes Music, number 3, it was number 1. By the time I took the screenshot, it was number 3. This is Top 40 Christian Gospel Albums. Number 3 is by an artist called Flamy Grant. She mocks the name Amy Grant, the queen of Christian music. She's a transgender man calling herself Flamy, and she ranked number 3 on album sales on Amazon or iTunes Music. How about this one? Presbyterian pastor wearing Planned Parenthood stole, that garb, praises abortion, celebrates 2 of her own. I felt no guilt and no shame. She sits in the pulpit and promotes this. This is the great apostasy. We talked a lot about it last month. I don't have time to, as we run out of time. But this is the United States Congress doing hearings on aliens. What used to be considered crazy is now down the street before our congressional hearing because they are saying something's out there. What is it? And as we talk about it, and we'll talk about it more when we get to these things, is the devil needs to come up with some explanation of the rapture. And that's why I could stand up here and people go, that pastor, he believes in aliens. I don't believe in aliens. I believe Ezekiel 10, they're demonic beings. But if I did say I believed in aliens, could you call me crazy? Or would you call me senator? Right? So that's where we've come, that the recognition is. And then knowledge shall increase in the last days, Daniel chapter 12. Every eye will see him, as we know, and there's just this great increase in technology. Joe Biden's going to release $42 billion to make sure every American has internet access by 2030. And then the Magog invasion, we've been talking about that. Ezekiel 38, Russia, Iran, Turkey, all together. I took that picture myself when I was in Israel. That's a Russian compound 10 miles from the Israeli border. And we see it coming together. We see they coming together. But here's something that's fun for you. Nicaragua is going to allow Russia to build military bases that then will have the capability of nuclears, planes and hypersonic missiles. What's my point that I make about that? That doesn't make me feel good as an American, but one of the things that definitely is unnerving, unsettling to me is if Russia has nukes pointed at America and they move and come down upon Israel, who's going to say anything? If Russia has nukes in Belarus and they're pointed at European Union, who's going to say anything? They're going to say, don't do that, but they're not going to stand up. So, and then they got this sub that has nukes that could be 3 miles off our coast right now and not detected. And I could talk a whole bunch more about the Magog invasion. I talked this morning about the rebuilt temple. It shall be rebuilt. And they got all the pieces, and the Antichrist is going to walk in there at the 3.5-year mark and say, I am the Christ that you've been looking for. And we talked about that this morning of the Saudis want this normalization. They want to come and be the holders of the keys to the Temple Mount. And that's fascinating to me. Well, where's America? No scriptures to talk about it. America, these slides talk about, man, we are not in a good financial position with inflation, high interest rate. The BRICS, Brazil, Russia, India, and China, they want to destabilize the dollar and make their currency and that would make our economy even worse. America's in upheaval. Money's going out all over the place. And my slide here, Maui's on fire. President Biden's going to give each person in Maui who lost their home $700 a person. but he's going to give Zelensky F-16s. And what's this slide? Since the war began, the United States have sent $113 billion to Ukraine, but the Maui people are going to get 700. This is ever so quiet, but our border's wide open. And President Trump, when he was building it, you're seeing this is actually govplanet.com. They sell surplus American government things. You can buy at a great deal. What you're seeing there, it's all stuff from the border. And what was supposed to be used to build the border wall is now being sold. So if we ever decide to stand up the border again, we'd have to go back and go through all the production again. See my last slide? Chinese are knowing that the border's open. 800% increase in Chinese illegal aliens coming across the border now. I talked about this, just the travesty of the American system, that they have the power now to indict who they want to and shut down who they want to. And President Trump, whether you're for him or against him, the point that I make is President Trump over and over, it's going to be anything to keep him from running for president. Mark of the beast, Revelation 13, buy and sell with a chip. We see that developing before our very eyes, cashless systems. This is interesting, speaking of the AI. They used artificial intelligence to listen to people stroking on their keyboard, and it was 95% accurate to know what your password was, just by hearing the keystrokes. So what that tells me is, well, somewhere you're going to need a stopgap, and it's going to be this chip that you can't get through, and that's going to be the stopgap. And 12, Babylon will be rebirthed, Revelation 14, Revelation 18. Satan's going to finish what he tried to start, make himself a god, and we see them being rebirthed. The Battle of Armageddon is going to be the last day, the kings of the east and coming against the Antichrist and his force. Well, what I say about that is you have to see Asia being rebirthed, and we're watching China through all this coming strong again and being rebuilt. But India just landed on the moon. The number one population just landed on the moon, and they now are rising in their power, a king of Asia. But the good news, it's not the Jesus revolution. It was entertaining, but it reached the top 5 in Netflix. And I close with that slide because you know what it tells me? That's not just Christians watching the movie. There's a world out there that knows it's empty and knows that it's vanity and that knows that Jesus is the answer. And so there's hope for us to continue with this. And so, Father, I bless you and I thank you for this word that you gave it to us. And I thank you, Lord, for the good news that we can have salvation and hope through the finished work of Jesus Christ, the covenant that was signed and sealed through the blood of the Lamb that became sin for us, that we might become right with you. But Lord, as we look at this world and we look at all around us, Lord, we're not unnerved. It's all that you said it would be. And we can comfort one another. You see these things. But Lord, may we live in a priority and a purity as we know that the scriptures are true, and we can live in the joy knowing that your return is near. You're coming to get your kids. As bad as we see it, it's going to get worse. But you're taking us home for a time with you. So Lord, I pray anyone that doesn't know you, that you would move in their hearts and speak to their hearts. And I pray this in your name.